Hey there, welcome to Generations Wealth Talk. My name is Todd Watley, and this is our brand new show, and I am super excited about it. So, again, my name is Todd Watley. I am a certified elder law attorney working with Generations Legal Group.
I'm Weinder. I'm a certified financial planner. I work with Generations Wealth Partners, which is our business together. So we have a generational theme is really what we try to put forward.
Yeah, and that was very intentional because we work with generations, and so the show's going to be a lot about, it's called wealth, but a whole lot of times people's wealth depends on legal issues and probate and just all kinds of things come into play when we talk about wealth. And this show is going to be all things wealth, everything we can talk about. And this is not our first rodeo, is it?
No.
It is for TV, but yeah.
It is for TV. We did, how long did we do the radio together? 18 months? Almost 2 years together.
Yeah, you and I did it for about 18 months. I was on radio for almost 14 years with Kerm Radio and loved doing it, and every show talked about the very things we're going to talk about here.
I think what's really important about our perspective on things, and really the purpose of the show, is both of us are it's really important to us to educate and inform consumers and our clients. Whether you're our client or not, we still think that you're going to make better decisions related to legal issues, tax issues, financial issues, if you're informed and if you're educated.
Absolutely. And there are so many misconceptions out there, and probably every show is going to be, hopefully, doing topics where you as the listener will absolutely learn something every time, something that you think is in your head that's like, oh, this is how that is.
Or you've been taught for decades.
Yeah, you've been taught. It's like, no, that's not actually how it is. And so this show, over the next however many months we do it, is going to be about topics that you probably think are just, oh, I know that. You probably don't. So,
and that's a bit of our conversation today is, it's the price of being ignorant. And we were joking about what we were going to title it today, but we just figured that we'll come out and be direct. This is our approach.
Yeah.
We feel a very real pressure to give good information and to educate, and beyond that, what someone decides to do with that information is up to them.
Yeah.
But if we're keeping this stuff a secret that can literally save hundreds of thousands of dollars over someone's life and make a huge impact on their family, if we were to not share that information, we think that would be ethically wrong. That'd be on us.
Sure.
And so we're going to share it, but you get to decide what you want to do with it.
Exactly. So what are the three big topics? And I'm talking big, huge topics that we can do, not just one show on each topic, but probably 5 or 6 shows on every single topic. But today, let's talk about the big 3 things that we see that families, even 30, 40-year-olds, but particularly older people, mess up on.
There's really 3 key and huge issues.
Okay.
If you get these right, it can make a significant impact.
Hundreds of thousands,
if not millions of dollars over your lifetime. So we feel that this is a high leverage thing to talk about.
Yeah.
And even though it may seem basic and you go, oh, I think I've already figured that out, is it worth just making sure? If half an hour could save you $500,000, is that a good use of time? We would argue yes. So the 3 things we're going to talk about on this show and today specifically are how to avoid probate. That's number 1. Number 2 is Social Security and when is the optimal time to make that claiming decision. This is a huge issue that I don't think gets enough attention.
Right.
And then the third is taxes in retirement. And so the last 2 are interlinked, but we're going to talk about all of them and really how they all work together. And these are really, really high leverage issues that if we get it wrong is going to be really costly.
So let's talk about probate.
Let's start there.
I just want to start there. We'll get to the other 2 and probably come back to probate because probate is one of those issues, and you're probably sitting out there listening saying, okay, I did a will, so probate's fine. Wrong.
Hang on.
Wrong.
Let's take a second.
That is not true. And you're like, but everybody says do a will. Everybody needs a will.
National
right?
Will Month.
National Will Month. August is National Will Month, and it drives me absolutely crazy because a will is a horrible estate plan. Yes, I said it. I'm not.
No, you're the lawyer, right?
I am the lawyer, and I actually did say wills are a bad idea, and particularly if you don't have minor children. And so, as an elder law attorney, I work with people that are typically 65 and above, and most of them do not have minor children. Okay, a will is what takes you through probate. It is the roadmap. It's what tells the judge what to do with your stuff as you go through probate. And people are like, but wait, I thought a will avoided probate because it's a legal document that says my stuff goes to these people, the house goes here. It says what to do. Doesn't that just happen? No, it does not. You have to open up a probate to deal with those assets that are stuck in your name. And the judge then looks at the will and says, oh, this is valid. This is what we're going to do in probate. And people I tell people that, and they're like, no, wait, that's not the way I understood it. You meet with people all the time that they're like, oh, yeah, I've done a will. It's fine.
We're like, okay. And then I'm like, hey, hang on. Well, can I translate just a little bit out of the legal terminology for the rest of us?
That's your job here.
So when we talk about probate, we're talking about going to court.
Yeah.
So if you have a will, this is your primary estate planning tool. Mm-hmm. You have a will, that's going to force your family or your beneficiaries to go to court to get what you want done to happen.
If the items go through probate, that's one of the key issues. So let's back up. What goes through probate? There's a long legal definition. Todd's definition is anything that is stuck in a dead person's name, that's what goes through probate, okay? And you're like, okay, Todd, well, okay, probate, it's court. How bad can it be? 5 to 10% of your estate in fees is what is at stake. The attorney gets a statutory fee based on how much goes through probate. The executor also gets a fee that sometimes is more than the attorney's fees.
Yep.
And then the judge is going to want appraisals, they're going to want valuations of things, and they're going to want everything to be looked at. And also, probate, the real purpose of probate is to make sure that all of your creditors get paid. So there's a 6-month period of time where nothing in the probate happens. We push pause and let all of your creditors send in all of their bills. And then at the end of 6 months, we fire this thing back up again and say, okay, how do we deal with these creditors? And we make sure that your creditors get paid. It is expensive. It
only takes like a year, right?
And exactly. From your date of death until things fully get transferred to your kids outside of probate can easily, and that's if nothing goes wrong, if no one contests, no one throws a fit about this, it's going to be a year later until they get their stuff. And if you'll follow my advice to avoid probate, they can literally fly into your funeral, do your funeral, swing by the bank after the funeral, get their check, put it in their pocket, get on the plane, and go home with their money, literally. And people are like, what? Oh, okay. And it's just a foreign concept to people.
This is one of these, we talk about high leverage things to get right. And it is a little bit counterintuitive to what people have been told.
Absolutely.
And so, Todd, you mentioned that the rate for probate is fixed by law. Mm-hmm. So you're saying that if someone goes through probate, it's between 5 and 10% of the estate. Mm-hmm. 5 and 10%. I just want to say that a couple more times to make sure that we get that.
Everything.
But Todd, you're an attorney. Don't you want people to go through probate so you can charge them more?
That's what you would think. But as an attorney, I have a fiduciary duty to my client, just like you do. Mm-hmm. And my job is to make sure that I do what's best for you, okay? Mm-hmm. And going through probate is not what's best for you,
no.
Okay? It is expensive, it is time-consuming, and we can avoid probate so simply. And hopefully we'll have time at the end to talk about trust for just a second. But a trust can work, but there are alternatives to a trust that also avoid probate. And you really want to get my dandruff up and see these veins on my head expand is when someone was sold a trust and they didn't actually need a trust. And that's a whole different show.
We'll do that show.
We will
because
do that
that's
show
really
very quickly.
That's really important.
Yeah.
And I think I'm drawing some parallels here, and I'm trying to make some analogies because folks are getting to know us and the way that we approach planning and the way that we think. And so I want people to understand that our approach is different than maybe what they've experienced in the past or what they would expect when they're working with an attorney and a financial planner.
Sure.
We have an obligation that is the highest legal obligation to our clients.
Yes.
And we take that really, really seriously, to the point that it keeps us up at night in some cases. And
yeah.
But tell your Walmart story. I love this, and this is our philosophy. Well, your approach is, and I've borrowed this from you in some other areas. Okay. You say, look, I'm gonna always do exactly what's right for the client because I don't want to have to try to duck aisles in Walmart, and it cracks me up, but it's true.
That Walmart story, yeah.
We see so many people, we help so many people. We can't always remember every little thing that's done, and so we're just going to do the right thing the first time and not worry about it.
Okay, yeah. I was like, what are you talking about? Okay, so my theory is if I meet you as a client in Walmart, I don't want to think, oh, I didn't do what's good for them, and I forced them into probate when I really could have avoided it and made $20,000, $30,000 off them. I don't want that thought to go through my head. Every single meeting, it's like I'm going to do exactly what's in your best interest, and I can walk out of your meeting and go home and lay down my head and know I did exactly what was in your best interest. Okay, so. I was going to wrap up probate real quick, but it is something to be. My point is, honestly, and judges and lawyers don't like it when I say this, but if you're going through probate, I'll say something wasn't done right.
I agree.
Okay,
yeah.
Probate, I think, was created for, this person died with assets stuck in their name, and they have to go through probate. It's so easy to avoid. It's not always expensive, and even if we do something that you may think is expensive, it's not 5 to 10% of your estate. It is way less than that, and it always makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about the other two.
Well, I think that's really important, and we started sort of at the end of life a little bit, and we're working our way back.
Okay.
But I think it's important to understand that when we're doing planning, that's actually a really good way to think about it. Because if we know what we want to happen, where do you want your stuff to go? If there's stuff left over, how do you want that to go? That can determine the steps that we take along the way.
Sure.
And how do we design that? And so one of the things that I want to talk about that I think gets dramatically oversimplified is claiming Social Security. Now, we're talking about this for a particular demographic. Folks at my stage of life, we don't really worry about this very much, and they probably may not be around at that time, right? We joke about it, but it might be the case. But if you're getting ready for retirement, or you've retired and you don't have a strategy to claim Social Security, this is something that we should talk about.
It's just $100 a month difference, right?
The right claiming strategy, and there's different strategies for everyone, but the right claiming strategy can be hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime and your spouse's lifetime if you're married.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And we can absolutely back that up with significant numbers. And so when we're starting to talk about these things, especially when folks they're getting ready for retirement, they're thinking about how are we going to create income in retirement, what's the strategy there? I always love to ask exactly that. Hey, what's your strategy for claiming Social Security? And it's interesting, there's really three answers that I get. The first answer is what I call the brother-in-law answer or the neighbor answer. And that is someone told them that the Social Security trust is underfunded and it's going to run out, so claim at 62, and that way you'll at least get a little bite of the apple. What I want you to hear as we're talking about that is that's a fear-based answer and that's a cookie-cutter answer.
Right.
Now, in our world, fear-based answers and cookie-cutter answers that's not enough. That's not good enough.
Right.
The other answer that we'll hear is, and this is typically folks who have an advisor they've worked with for a long time. And typically that advisor is focused on accumulation, building up a nest egg for retirement. And there's really a couple phases in someone's life. There's the accumulation phase where they're building a nest egg. Then there's the preservation and then the distribution phase. This is where we specialize really, is preservation and distribution. How do we make sure we don't run out of money? And how do we make sure that if there's anything left over, it goes to the people, places, and organizations that we care about?
Sure.
There's different skill sets involved. You know, Todd, do you do any divorce work?
Nope.
Do you do PI stuff?
Nope.
But you're an attorney, you can do it, right?
I can, but you don't want me to, I promise.
Because it's really specialized.
Right.
And just in the same way that a physician specializes, advisors and attorneys that are good at what they do also specialize. You might have a great family doctor, but you don't necessarily want them doing the heart surgery on you.
No.
And your brother-in-law may be a great podiatrist, but if you need a stent, if he's any good, he's going to tell you not to hire him to put that in, right?
Yeah.
And so we joke about that and make that analogy, but these are specialized issues. And so the second Social Security claiming strategy that I hear from folks who they've typically worked with an advisor for a long time, but that advisor doesn't specialize in preservation and distribution.
Sure.
They specialize in accumulation, building the nest egg. So I say, hey, that's great. You work with an advisor. You're getting a second opinion. What is their Social Security claiming strategy? What have they told you is the right thing to do? And it's so funny. I've heard it so many times that this is the answer. The person will tell me their advisor says, we tell all of our clients to claim at your full retirement age so you don't have a reduction in benefits. And that's a little technical. We won't get into all the details now. But what I want you to hear is that's cookie cutter, and that's not customized to their situation.
Yeah.
And that, in some cases, can be a couple $100,000 of just sloppiness. And that's unacceptable. Now, what we do is a little bit different. We look at the entire scenario and we say, hey, how do all your assets work, and what's going to be the right decision for you based on your longevity expectations, your other potential to create income, and what are the other assets that you have? And I've been dancing around this issue, which is our third issue, but taxes in retirement is a really big issue. And estate taxes is a whole other thing that we should probably spend a show on.
Okay. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That needs to be there. But what a lot of folks don't understand is that if we make a poor Social Security claiming decision, there can be some significant tax impacts to that as well.
Yeah, our government taxes Social Security at certain rates. And you don't want to pay tax on money that you really already been taxed on. And if we can avoid that, that alone can save.
That can save hundreds of thousands of dollars over someone's life. And that sounds like such a big number.
Yeah.
But when folks begin to realize that longevity assumptions are much higher than they used to be.
Yeah.
Statistically, the actuaries, they say that if someone is age 65, they expect them actuarially to live to 95 today.
That's 30
that
years.
plus medicine. That's a big deal. And so making these little easy, what I would consider mistakes of not planning well early on can have big impacts later on.
Yeah. So you look at health and current working conditions, and if they have money in IRAs, having lots of money, a whole show on that. If most of your investments are in IRAs, that tremendously impacts when you should take Social Security. And I've never heard anyone compare those two, but once you explained it to me, it's like, that makes total sense.
It's such an important conversation.
Yeah.
I was on a podcast with one of our mutual colleagues the other day, and he was asking me about Social Security. And I have a little, what I call the litmus test for your advisor.
Okay.
And when you're approaching, I might get in trouble for this, but when you're approaching retirement, we talked about the different specialization and why that's important. And what I encourage folks, whether you decide to work with us or not is really not the issue, but we want you to be informed and to be able to make good decisions.
Sure.
Some of these decisions could impact your entire future and family wealth, getting this wrong.
Absolutely.
So this is worth double checking and having a specialist. And so what I recommend to folks, especially if they've had an advisor, in the accumulation phase they've worked with for a long time, usually they're a really great guy or a really great lady. That's always the case. We wouldn't expect anything else, right?
They're so nice.
But I say there's two questions that you ask. There's two questions if you want to determine whether that advisor is the right advisor to take you to and through retirement.
Okay.
These are so interesting and so simple. The first one is, and you don't do this via email. You do it in person in one of these conversations, and you don't let them know that this conversation's going to come. Okay. But this is worth potentially millions of dollars.
Okay.
It's worth getting this right. And so you say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Advisor, in your next meeting, you say, hey, I'm curious, how is provisional income going to affect my taxes in retirement? So I'll say it again. We can write this down or something.
Get a pen.
Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Advisor, how is provisional income going to affect my taxes in retirement? You say it, and then you be quiet. And if the color drains from their face, or if they get red, and if they can't answer it clearly and articulately, it's probably time to do some interviews and see if there's another advisor you should talk to. What provisional income is the calculation to determine whether or not your Social Security is taxable. Now, to me, this is 101. This is basic.
Every advisor should know
Every
that.
advisor should know this. But when I interact with other advisors, or when I talk to prospective clients who have other advisors, I ask them, what's the plan around this? And most of them, even advisors, don't know the answer to it,
right,
which is kind of shocking.
So what's the second question?
So the second question, if they answer that, and if they answer that well, the second question is, okay, well, what's our tax strategy in retirement?
Okay.
And more often than not, someone who's an accumulation-focused advisor, what they'll say, well, we don't really do taxes. You got to ask your tax preparer about that. And then what typically happens is you go talk to the tax preparer and you say, hey, I'm getting ready to retire. I want to make sure that we have a good tax strategy in retirement. This crazy guy on TV said that this was really important, to make sure we have a good strategy in retirement. And typically what I'll hear is that the tax preparer is going to go, well, we don't do financial planning, so you need to talk to the advisor about that. Then here you are stuck in the middle, going, okay, what do we do?
No one answers their questions, yeah.
It's fascinating, and I hope that's not the experience of the folks at home, but I hear it a lot, and it's enough that we need to be thoughtful about this.
So we jump to that third topic, which is taxes, okay? So let's talk very briefly, and we'll probably do a whole show on this.
We need to.
Once we get closer to the election, or probably right after the election.
That would probably make sense. Yeah.
Is people right now, if you've met with me over the last 10 or 15 years, particularly over the last 5 years, I've said you really don't have to worry about estate tax because it doesn't affect you. Because for a married couple to get into an estate tax issue, they had to have over $26 million. Not many people have over $26 million. And so it's just a non-issue. We don't talk about it. I'm like, don't worry about it. And we move on to other things. Well, the thought is that number is going to be, for a couple, it could be anywhere from 6 to 9, maybe 10 million. Kind of depending on how the election goes, okay?
Oh boy, this is an interesting one.
And so a lot of people who have $1 million, $2 million today, that should double within the next 7 or 8 years. And if you plan on living past 7 or 8 years, now you're starting to look at a taxable estate issue, which is almost a 50% tax. So
this is, and what's interesting is we're jumping into estate plan here, which is great. And I want folks to be thinking about this stuff because we've been talking to our clients about this for the last year and a half, and I'm starting to see more people and the press pick it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so I think this is important to talk about. We have to talk about what's inside the estate. It's pretty much everything that you own. That includes the death benefit for life insurance. This one always gets missed.
that surprises people, yeah.
And so that's included. So let's say your death benefit on your life insurance is $2 million. Well, if that's all you have a $2 million estate.
Yeah.
Any real estate that you own, so your home, if you have any land, farmland, business, any other assets that you own are included in that estate. And so right now the limit per person is $13.61 million. Most people aren't over that. But as early as like 2012, the previous 30 years, the average was about $1 million per person. And so we've been sort of sounding this alarm because, at least in Northwest Arkansas, at least the value of property has gone up enough where this is going to sneak up on some folks. And you have, what would happen if you have to pay an estate tax? Think of it as a estate tax, or a death tax is another way that we say it, because that's what it is. It's a 40% flat tax
Federally.
And federal tax, yep. And it's due in 9 months. So if we don't have liquidity, if we don't have the ability to pay this, this is intended, in my opinion, this is intended to evaporate wealth from a family.
Yeah.
And if we get it wrong, the stakes are really, really high. And so we're going to talk about this more, but the big issue that I want people to be realizing is these rules are changing and they continue to change. And so part of what we're going to do on this show is keep you up to date on the rules as they're changing and even the prospective legislation that's coming down.
Yeah, I think, you listen to the media and we're always going to tax the rich. The rich need to pay more, and so we're going to tax the rich. And I have sat with people who are worth millions and millions of dollars, and I'm like, do you consider yourself rich? Or, oh, no, in no way am I rich. And so I'm sure most of you out there are thinking, well, I'm not rich. Taxing the rich doesn't affect me. But when you start having a $1 million or $2 million life insurance policy, or you have land out in Goshen that you paid $75,000 for and now is $500,000, you're getting into the rich category.
At least as far as our friends in Washington are concerned.
Yep, that's how
when they're looking in your pocket.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. So it is very surprising, and I think people are very surprised to think, oh, that taxing the rich is going to affect me. Yeah, it is. And so that's...
If we're not careful, these things can become issues. And so, our goal is not to scare anybody. It's not to make anybody, feel afraid in any way.
Sure.
But really, we care a lot about education. We care a lot about, we have a phrase that we would say on the radio, what you don't know can cost you. And it's uncomfortable, but it's true.
Right. My phrase of that is save a buck, lose a fortune.
Yep.
And it is so true. And so that's what this show is for. Okay. This was kind of a very quick introduction to a lot of topics that we can spend a whole lot more time on. And so I want to go back real quick. I promised some people here at the station, actually, I would do this. And so some very common questions that I get about trust and different things. One of those, and particularly here in Bella Vista, no one was born here. Everybody moved here from somewhere else, and typically from some other state.
That's true.
And so they may have done a trust in the state that they lived in, and now they're here with an out-of-state trust. And I get this question. I do, just for you listeners, I do Coffee with the Pro at Rogers Wellness Center the third Thursday of every month from 9 until 10:30, and I do the same thing, Coffee with the Pro at the Schmeeting Center the first Thursday of each month from 9 until 10:30. You just show up, ask questions, I answer questions. And every single time that I've done that now for about 8 years, someone says, I just moved here, I have an out-of-state trust, what do I need to do? And I'm like, well, the short answer is you probably need to get it looked at. You definitely need to get what's called the situs, where, the law that it is under, you need to get that changed to Arkansas. And then let's look at it, because sometimes doing a trust 25 years ago made total sense. And today, since the kids are grown and your situation is probably somewhat more simplified, we may not need to spend the money to redo the trust. We may need to just kill the trust. It's like, wait,
Todd,
you're an attorney.
You're supposed to sell trust, right?
Absolutely.
As an attorney.
That seems to be the perception, but I probably kill as many trusts as I create.
We fight about this, by the way.
I know. We don't agree on everything, by the way. So, but yes, sometimes people just, their situation now is very simple, and they just don't need a trust anymore. And rather than spending $5 or $6 or $100 or $1,000 to redo the trust, let's just kill it. Okay, you can still avoid probate without a trust. Okay, that's heresy among attorneys, but I promise you can avoid probate without doing a trust, and we'll do an entire show on that. We have 54 seconds.
Okay, we're good. So look, this is just a good start. This is a good introduction to the type of banter that you're going to see, the type of education that's going to happen. But we want to give a quick, easy offer. You can call the office phone number 479-601-4119. Again, that's 479-601-4119. 4119. You can schedule a consultation with us. There's no charge for an initial consultation, and we'll just answer some questions that you have. Make sure what we really want to offer is simply a second opinion on your current situation. And what if that second opinion, let's say it takes half an hour, Todd, to visit. What if that could save you a couple $100,000? Or what if there's one line on the power of attorney that something's wrong that's gonna throw it off? It's worth a conversation.
Yeah.
So 479-601-4119.
Thanks.